Great moments are born in great opportunity. And that's what you have here tonight, boys. That's what you've earned here tonight.
There were some things going on in sports today that will make your brain fall out of your skull.
It's sports.
All around the clock, sports all the time.
That's the concept of the news.
Oh, that's never going to work.
How would you like to manage the Indians this year?
I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know? This is a chance to manage in the big leagues.
Let me think it over, will you, Charlie? I got a guy on the other line about some white walls. I'll talk to you later.
As you know, Monty, Vaughn's been working on a couple of new pitches, the Eliminator and the Humiliator, to complement his fastball, the Terminator.
I heard that.
Dynamite drop in, Monty. That broadcast school has really paid off.
You want to settle old scores, you're on the wrong team. We move forward starting right now. We start becoming a team right now.
And now, the sports issue with Jason and Toivo.
Welcome back to hour number 2 on the sports issue.
Well, welcome. Here we are.
A couple of quick sports announcements for you today. Grand Rapids boys soccer team in action. They take on St. Michael Albertville. That's at 1 o'clock. We'll be joined by Jeff Lightfoot here in just a little bit. Also, the Greenway volleyball team's in action. They're hosting a home tournament. That starts today at 9 o'clock. That should be an exciting day there. If they run the table, it could be 2 undefeated teams squaring off on Monday night at 7 o'clock in the Karen Tumberland Gymnasium in Coleraine. Grand Rapids versus Greenway.
That would be excellent, and you know, it's going to be quite the atmosphere. I just can't wait for it. Even if you're not a volleyball fan, you need to go out for this because it is going to be electric there, and you know, I can't wait. Monday night.
An exciting event coming up. Released the Star Tribune had this. Defending state basketball champions Apple Valley in Class 4A and De La Salle in 3A are among 5 Minnesota boys basketball teams scheduled to play in the 2014 Timberwolves Shootout on January 14th. Why I mentioned that? Grand Rapids is in that tournament in that day. They will take on Lakeville North at 9:15 a.m. on a day full of great games at the Target Center. They'll face J.P. Makura and Lakeville North, of course, Grand Rapids with Alex Illikainen. And it's a premier event which showcases some of the top players in the state against teams from other states. Of course, you'll have other games during that day. Cretin-Derham Hall will take on Bettendorf, Iowa at 11 a.m. De La Salle takes on St. Rita, Illinois. Then it'll be Apple Valley taking on Blue Valley Northwest out of Kansas. Everyone knows about Apple Valley and Tyus Jones, pretty much predicted to be the game changer in college sports. They're saying whoever he goes is going to be moved up probably to the top 10 status. If they're already there, when the top schools are already looking at him, Tyus Jones, and it sounds like it's going to be a group deal with him and another recruit. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but it's going to be interesting to see when they make that decision.
Yeah, that's all eyes are going to be on the state of Minnesota when that decision is made, because it's going to elevate that college program to the next level. With a fine young athlete that he is. And, in a couple of years, there's going to be a lot of eyes on Grand Rapids, Minnesota when Alex Illikainen decides to make that decision. There's a lot of teams that have thrown their name in the hat. And, for you people out there that don't follow basketball, haven't really followed the Alex Illikainen story, it's the real deal. This is big time. We've had some the who's who of college basketball so far already contacting him, coming to the gymnasium here in Grand Rapids. So if you're just a fan of sports at all, please get out to a game this year, because you never know who you're going to see in the stands, and it's going to be exciting to see when he finally does make that decision. I don't necessarily envy these young college athletes where they're getting all this pressure from different sources and angles, and sometimes just making the decision is one that kind of gets a lot of relief off your shoulders. One example in particular that I do want to bring up is the nanny situation. When he decommitted it to the University of Minnesota, came out on Twitter saying that he wanted to make his own path, didn't want to follow necessarily in the path of his grandfather. And there's a lot of pressure on these guys. In fact, there was a lot of people that said that the Minnesota Wild, the only reason why they drafted him is because of his grandfather. Well, now he's saying, you know what, I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to do my own thing. And, there's a lot of pressure from these young kids to make a decision on where they're going to go to college.
Well, you mentioned those young kids, according to Yahoo Sports, and rivals Alex Ilkane's been offered by about 11 different schools already, if my math is correct. So, and that's just this year. He's got 2 more seasons to go. So, those numbers are going to pile up. So that's going to be interesting. That Timberwolves shootout coming up at the Target Center. It's a fun day of basketball on January 4th. Now we'll touch on it. We'll head to the NFL. I'm going to start with this game, and it's pretty much the main event of the week. Last week we did our picks. We should keep track of how we do. I know here I struggled. I had a bad week picking.
Oh, I'm sure I struggled. I don't remember. We have to go search on YouTube, find the sports issue from last week. It's in the first episode, the first segment, and we'll find it and see who we picked. Are you going to write them down?
I think I might this week.
I'll write my picks down. You write yours.
We'll start with the main event. To me, the main event is the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers. That's going to be the game, and I think on my pick on this one, I'm going Seattle for a number of reasons. They're at home, and there was a little skirmish in the San Francisco-Green Bay game. Guess what team's still talking about it? To this day, Jim Harbaugh and the San Francisco 49ers. Move on.
I have this feeling that you don't like the Harbaughs for some reason. I'm gonna have to go with you on this one. I think Seattle pulls out a squeaker. I think it's going to be a close game. It's going to be of the 31-28 variety, 28-24, something like that. So I think Seattle pulls it out.
I think it's going to be one of those like 24-21, might be even lower than that, just because the defenses are so good. If you want to see a hard-hitting, bone-crunching football game, that's the game.
Yeah, all eyes will be on that game, definitely. I think it's going to be the tone setter for that division as well.
And all you hear is San Fran again. They're talking about the Clay Matthews hit. Yes, he hit Kaepernick out of bounds. Yes, it was a penalty and it was a personal foul. Was things administered the way they should have been in that situation? Probably not. But move on. It happened. You're not happy with the hit. I understand you want to protect your quarterback, but you're facing a team in Seattle who's got a defense that actually hits people. And yes, I am taking a shot at the Green Bay Packer defense because they didn't touch anyone on Sunday.
Well, no, except for out of bounds. That was the first time that they touched anybody. But I think that I still got to go Seattle, and I think that Kaepernick is going to get an eye-opening event there with that stellar defense. Both sides have a stellar defense. I mean, it's going to be a great game. Going to be one to watch. So I can't wait. It's going to be exciting.
And that atmosphere at CenturyLink Field in Seattle will be out of this world. Another game, Atlanta taking on St. Louis. Atlanta drops a tough one in New Orleans to start things off. St. Louis outlasts Arizona. St. Louis, an up-and-coming team. You never know what you're going to get from Sad Bradford, but I think I'm going to go Atlanta. I like the sure thing. Matt Ryan. I think they're going to get Steven Jackson more involved in the offense. He only had 11 touches. You talked about AP not having enough touches against Detroit. Same thing I think could have been said for Steven Jackson against St. Louis or against New Orleans. They need to get him the football, let him work, especially inside the 20s.
Yeah, they need to get Steven Jackson. I mean, they picked him up from St. Louis. They need to get him more involved in the offense. Matty Ice doing a great job. Of course, Tony Gonzalez coming out of retirement. Thank you very much, Tony, by the way. You sealed my fate at tight end for fantasy football. And Steven Jackson, they need to get more involved because of fantasy football. I go with Atlanta on this one.
Carolina versus Buffalo, two teams coming in 0-1. Buffalo had New England on the ropes but couldn't finish it off. Carolina suffered a tough loss to Seattle. They had them on the ropes. I'm going with Carolina. I just like their chances. I like Cam Newton at quarterback. I think Newton's going to have a big day running and passing the football.
I'm gonna go with Buffalo on this one, just because I don't want to pick every single one that you pick. We got to have a little bit of differences, but I liked the way that Buffalo played against New England. I didn't like the way they finished. I think that they figured that out this week, and I think that that Cam Newton will have a big day, but I think it's going to be Buffalo. Another
one that we'll talk about in the AFC, Miami taking on the Indianapolis Colts, a battle of two young quarterbacks, Andrew Luck versus Ryan Tannehill. I like Tannehill and the Dolphins with Mike Wallace on the outside. Wallace will be done pouting after Sunday. I think he's going to have a big game, as will Brian Hartline.
I'm going to have to go against Jason Merritt on this one. It's definitely going to be all Colts. I think Luck really gets comfortable back there and comes a little bit into his own. So I'm going to go with the Colts.
I think it's going to hurt the fact that Luck's running back Ballard is out for the year, and that hurt my fantasy football team. I wasn't playing him. I mean, I know you wonder if you're starting a fourth running back, but no, he was not playing. But he's out for the year. We'll see what happens there. I think Luck's, well, I'm not going to say his Luck's run out because he's one of the best quarterbacks, young quarterbacks in the league. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I like Miami. I just like Ryan Tannehill. I think he's come along.
I think he's doing a great job down there in Miami, but I got to go with Andrew Luck and the Colts on this one, just because of, like you said, he's a fine young quarterback. He's probably one of the best to come out, in recent years. Very great pickup for the Colts in the transition, moving away from Peyton Manning. So, but I'm gonna have to go Colts.
Dallas Cowboys, Kansas City Chiefs, unique battle there between the coaches, Jason Garrett and former Philadelphia Eagle head coach Andy Reid. I just like the Cowboys. Granted, it's at Arrowhead.
I like the ever so popular Sybil Cowboys, is what I'll call them, because you never know what you're going to get with them. Usually Tony Romo throws for 400 yards or 3 interceptions and 100 yards. So I'm going to go with Romo and the Cowboys on this one. I just think they're too much, and Andy Reid just doesn't have it.
Another one we'll look at, San Diego taking on Philadelphia and Philly. Philadelphia 1-0, San Diego 0-1 after blowing a big lead against Houston on Monday night. I like Philadelphia and their new high-octane offense that apparently is revolutionizing the sport, which even though Chip Kelly did it at Oregon for so many years, I don't think they're going to do it again. I like Michael Vick, and I like the option of LaShawn McCoy.
I think LaShawn McCoy has finally gotten involved in that offense the way that he needed to. Over the course of the last couple of years, in the final years of the Reid era, I just think it was once again too vanilla of an offense, or they're trying to do too many different things. This is a very structured offense. It's quick tempo. It doesn't give, where last year the decision making in Michael Vick was too long. It was, okay, here, you're going to take a 5-step drop and look for your receivers. Now it's Chip Kelly. It's fast pace. It's go, go, go. It's you find your receiver, you throw it to him, or you make a decision. Get going, get going, get going. And they've been running that for the past couple months now. And like you said, revolutionary, quote unquote. Chip Kelly's been doing it for years. It's worked in Oregon. He only lost 8 games in 5 years or something like that. He had a very high-powered offense, and he's continuing that here with the Philadelphia Eagles. And he actually has the stellar athletes to do it. That's the reason why it worked. John Gruden, get a firm grip on your ears and pull your head out, because you're acting like you've never seen this before. I don't know if you're doing it for TV or what, but the Eagles are the real deal. And if they don't almost blow the game, I couldn't believe that it ended up 33-27, but I go with the Eagles all the way on this one.
There's rumors that John Gruden's still at FedEx Field talking right now about that game on Monday night.
Well, I can't believe that this offense actually worked. Come on, Gruden.
Other games we'll touch on. We'll go through a couple of these ones pretty quick. Baltimore at Cleveland. I have Baltimore.
Yeah, Baltimore. We don't have to touch on that one.
Tennessee versus Houston. I think that's going to be a good one, but I'm going to go Houston.
I got to agree with you on that one.
Another one quick. We'll go New Orleans Saints at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I like New Orleans. Sean Payton back.
Yeah, Sean Payton's back. New Orleans, definitely on that one.
Jacksonville and Oakland, someone has to win by rule. Oh, they could tie. They could tie, but someone has to win. Terrell Pryor in Oakland, I go with the Raiders.
I like what I saw out of Oakland last week. I'm going to go with the Raiders.
I do like that Chad Henne's starting for Jacksonville, I believe, because Gabbert's injury, so we'll see if the former Michigan alum could bring it out. Peyton Manning versus Eli Manning, the Manning Bowl. Broncos-Giants. I'll go with the Broncos.
I got to go with Peyton Manning's my starting quarterback on fantasy football. I can't go against him because I have got to have good karma. I'm going to go with the Broncos on this one.
Well, we'll take a quick time out on the Sports Issue. Come back with your local picks of Minnesota, Green Bay, and Detroit. Up next on the Sports Issue on 1320 KOZY. Welcome back once again to the Sports Issue. I'm Jason.
And I'm Toivo.
One game I forgot to mention before we hit the local one, Cincinnati and Pittsburgh. Cincinnati 0-1, Pittsburgh 0-1 as well. I believe Andy Dalton and the Cincinnati Bengals are going to pull this one out. That's the Monday night special. So.
See, I got to go with you on that one, too. Cincinnati, I mean, they looked good against the Bears. Just couldn't pull it off. I think that they're going to take down the Steelers.
I know we're not going to agree on, I think, 2 of the next 3, but we'll see what happens. Detroit at Arizona should be an interesting game. I've said interesting a lot today. It should be a fun game, I think. It's one of those games where you have a team from the Midwest going out west. Normally have tough go a lot of times when that happens, but it's a later start, so the layover I don't think will be as bad for Detroit. And you throw in the Reggie Bush factor. You touch on it. He had 21 carries, 90 yards on the ground, 101 yards receiving, and a touchdown against the Vikings. I think he's going to be the difference. As good as Carson Palmer is going to be for the Cardinals, Reggie Bush is that much better and more, and means more, I think, to the Lions and the success of quarterback Matthew Stafford.
I got to go Detroit on that one, just because of the way that they performed last week and the way that their offense got everybody involved. Wish they would have got Megatron more involved, as I have him as fantasy football as well. But I think you see him get more involved this week, but centering around that offense of Reggie Bush. And when I said last week that they added Reggie Bush for the running element. People might have thought I was crazy, but look what he did against the Vikings. I mean, he's a fast back, he's a dynamic back, and he doesn't have to be that between the tackles guy. He could be the outside guy or the swing passes, which are initially extended handoffs.
And here's a memo for you, Ndamukong Suh. I know you're probably not listening to me. Pull your head out of you-know-what. Seriously, you have cost your team so much this year, and it's only one game in. You don't need the undue attention. You're a good football player. What are you doing? It makes no sense at all. Sullivan was 10 yards behind the play, and you can't tell me, I was going for his hip, his waist. You had no chance at hitting him there the way you went at him.
No, he's been cheap ever since he got in the league, and I just there's people that are Ndamukong Suh fans, and I am a fan of him as long as he plays clean football. But if you're not going to play clean football, there's a point in time which the NFL's got to step in and say, listen, you got to stop. Otherwise, we're just going to suspend you, because it's getting ridiculous at this point in time. I mean, with the stomping last year, I had a guy that was a Ndamukong Suh fan actually justify it by saying he's getting better. And I said, really, he's getting better? He went from stomping to trying to break a guy's knee? If that's getting better, I don't like the progress.
It's just something else. And he's complaining about the fine. Well, don't do the crime. You have no need to do that. It was just a little love tap up top would have been more than enough.
Yeah, he didn't need to do what he did, and he's a dirty player.
Well, now we have both games at noon. It'll be the Washington Redskins at Lambeau Field to take on the Green Bay Packers. Both teams coming in 0-1. The Redskins battled back late in the second half against the Packers, who were in a dogfight with San Francisco.
I definitely going Washington on this one, and not only because it's just the Green Bay factor, but the way that RG3 stepped up and played in the second half against the Eagles to come back and almost pull out the victory there. I've got to go with the Redskins on that one.
Of course, I'm going with the green and yellow in Green Bay. I like Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. I think Eddie Lacy showed some signs after the fumble in the first half. I think going for 41 yards, I know it doesn't sound like much against San Francisco on 14 carries, but I just think, he showed some signs, and that's going to be the huge thing. I don't like their defense against RG3 if he's sitting in the pocket, but when it comes to running the ball, I like Green Bay being able to stop him.
I once again got to go with Washington on this one. I just have that feeling that RG3 is going to come out and have an even bigger game this game. He looked comfortable in the second half.
That should be a very exciting contest, that game at noon. And the other game we'll talk about, the Minnesota Vikings traveling to Soldier Field, take on the Chicago Bears. Kickoff at 12 noon. You can hear that on our sister station, 96.9 KMFY. Should be a fun game. Paul Allen, Pete Bursich, Greg Coleman with the pregame preach, and everyone else on the call.
Yeah, it'll be just right after the, of course, Sid and Dave there on Sunday morning.
We'll see if Sid is in his glory, if the Gophers can win in 2 hours.
Oh, the Gophers, they pulled out a big one. If he turns on his mic, that's... Oh, poor Sid. He's getting old, but 11 o'clock pregame on the Vikings. Another tough one on the road, division rival. I got to go with the Vikings on this one. I'm a fan. I'm going to admit it here. I'm a fan. I'm going with the Vikings on this. I can't pick it any other way.
I'm going Chicago, of course. I mean, granted, they're the number one rivalry, the Packers. I just don't see the Vikings pulling this one out. I'm not sold on Christian Ponder doing anything with the forward pass, and that has not helped him at all. He is struggling. 18 for 28 looks okay, but 236 yards, a couple of picks does not do much for me. And I like Mark Trestman at his offensive guru going back against the team that he kind of got his start with. So I think it's going to be – I'm not a fan of Jay Cutler. I can't stand watching him. But from what the Vikings defense showed, I think he can pick apart their secondary with ease.
Yeah, he very well could. But, maybe this game after watching an abysmal start by Ponder, maybe Matt Castle will actually get in there and have an opportunity to play. And by the way, Jason, he does have a ring. I don't know if you knew that.
We'll have to talk about that when we come back. In fact, here on the Sports Issue, we'll be back. Well, it's the news coming up from the Minnesota News Network here on 1320 KOZY.
Welcome back to the Sports Issue. Joined with me in studio now is head coach of the boys soccer team in Grand Rapids here, Jeff Lightfoot. Jeff, how's it going?
It's a great morning. Beautiful fall day.
It is beautiful out there. Beautiful fall day for soccer. In fact, we got a matchup coming today for you guys versus St. Michael Albertville. That game is at 1 o'clock. It'll be at Noble Hall Field here in Grand Rapids.
Correct. And that's a fun one for us. We've been traveling to St. Michael the last couple of years. Their coach is an alum of Grand Rapids. His name is Derek Dewey. Many people will recognize that name. So this is their first trip coming north. And Derek was on the inaugural team with Grand Rapids back in 1997. So it'll be kind of a homecoming for him. Never at this field, but it'll be fun for him to come home.
Yeah, I remember back in that inaugural season. That was actually when I was a senior in high school, and so it's good to see the program come as far as it has over the course of those few years. You guys have seen the state tournament action, and you guys have been kind of one of the powerhouses over the years in your section.
Yeah, we've luckily, I guess you could say, or maybe with some good fortune, we've been in the top 3 or 4 in the section for many years, and I hope we're going to end up there at the end of the season this year as well.
And that's good to speak of with all the fall sports that go on, that you guys can get the athletes out that you can. You've seen some of the guys from the hockey team and the basketball team and stuff like that over the years, and it's great to see that you guys can have those athletes come out.
Yeah, it's the fact that we can have multi-sport athletes participate in a variety of sports and help us on the soccer program. This year we have a basketball player. Hasn't played soccer since he was a youth kid. Came back, and he is now a starter on a team and a very important contributor to the program. So great to see those kids come back out.
Now let's talk a little bit about the season coming into this game today. We're here at 2-5-2 with a couple of ties versus Bemidji and White Bear Lake. And then most recently, last night, you had the loss to Rogers right here in Grand Rapids. Talk a little bit about that game.
Well, last night was a tough loss. We felt very confident going into that game. Over the last 4 or 5 games, we've played very well. We've won a couple, we've tied a couple, we've been in some very close games, 2-1 type games. Kids have been playing great soccer, and as the game started out, I felt we were in pretty good shape. And then a couple of lapses mentally, kind of focus, where we lost focus for short periods of time, allowed Rogers to get a goal, and then a second goal in the second half, and then a very late goal as we were pressing players forward. We were just real vulnerable, and they had a very fast player up on top and counterattacked us real quick with just a few minutes left in the game to get that third goal.
And now you guys coming into this game today, but I got to mention your section record so far, 2-1. Even though the 2-5 season so far, 2-1 in the section, that's the more important record I believe here. So
yeah, and that's the thing that's hard, I think, to keep reminding our players that the important games are really the ones to come yet, because we've only played 3 section games, and now it'll get heavy to the section here in the next couple weeks. We've played a very tough schedule early on, a lot of traveling. Teams like Rochester Lords, which are defending state champions, played White Bear Lake on the road. We played Minnetonka, a big AA school, comes up and played us and thumped us pretty good. But all of those are lessons that we can learn from as we go forward into the section.
And I got to mention the great schedule you guys have this year. A lot of home matches. It's nice to see that you guys don't have to travel all that far.
It's really unusual. Last year I think we were on the road 10 times. So this year it's just the flip of that, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, and typically we've seen in the past, most of your guys' opponents down in the cities. Now more recently, there's been a lot of teams around the area that have cultivated and actually have some good programs and some good soccer up here in the Northland.
Yep, that's exactly right. And it's worth those teams from the Twin Cities or the Metro coming north, and the fact they're willing to tribute to Ann Campbell here, our new AD, to kind of help promote that a little bit. In the past, they didn't want to come up. we had to make the trip down. So right now, with Lords will be up here next year, which is a huge trip for them. The fact that St. Michael, Rogers, White Bear Lake is the one exception. They're not traveling, and as a former alumni at White Bear Lake, that's one I keep bugging their coach about. So someday we'll get them up.
Well, that's good. And now let's talk a little bit about the keys going into today's game. What are some of the things that we can expect from St. Michael Albertville? What are some of the things that your team maybe needs to do to come out to be victorious today?
Well, St. Michael has always been a challenging game for us every time we've played them. They're typically, and I haven't seen them this year, but they tend to be very athletic, very fast up top. I don't think their record is that good this year, so I think they've lost some of their seniors or their older players, as have we. So the key today is to not make some of those same mistakes we made yesterday. We need to move the ball a little bit quicker. The field is starting to get chopped up a little bit from football action on it, and so it's difficult to play on. We need to recognize that we can't play a real fancy game because the field just doesn't allow it. So we need to play quicker, play smarter, get our heads up, and yesterday the chances we had to score goals we didn't capitalize on, and today we have to do that. We have to get the ball in the back of the net. And
you mentioned that field. Every team battles with that at Noble Hall Field towards the end of the year with soccer, with band, with Grand Rapids football, with ICC football, all sorts of different games being played on that. It gets chewed up quite a bit and gets pretty hard at the end of the season. Now, I know that you guys have played on turf before. What are your thoughts about Grand Rapids maybe transitioning into turf?
Well, as we look at kind of the way our season progresses here and what happens with the field, and it's no reflection on the grounds crew. They do as much as they possibly can to try and maintain that field, but turf would solve all kinds of problems. For soccer, it's a different game on turf. It's faster, but you get true bounces. You don't have to deal with divots and ruts and pieces of sod missing and mud and things like that we will as we get into kind of a rainy spell. So we played a lot on turf, and I expect that would help us out, as it probably would some of the other sports and activities.
And once again, you touched on the grounds crew. They do a great job every year. When you come into that first game, that field looks so beautiful, but it's just inevitable. It gets chewed up, throughout the course of the season.
Yep. Yeah, it looked beautiful yesterday. They were painting right before we warmed up, and I thought, wow, this looks fantastic. But it didn't take long, and it started to go. So
now we don't want to look forward, but we do have to talk about your next stretch coming up against all section opponents going into the last game with Duluth East. Coming up, you got Evelyn Gilbert, Duluth Marshall, Clocasko, Carleton, Proctor, and Denfeld. What can we expect in that stretch for a section, and how will that play a role in seedings?
Well, it's huge. The next one that's probably the most important to us, and I'm trying to focus on today, of course, but the next big section game will be Marshall. They're the defending Section 7 champs. They made it to the semifinals last year in the state tournament. By all appearances, they've got a very good squad again. So Marshall is going to be a very tough test for us. And then right after that, Cloquet is also playing extremely well. So those two teams, and I'd like to think Grand Rapids, are the top three teams in the section. Denfeld seems to be down a little bit this year. They lost a lot of their senior class from last year. Proctor seems to be down a little bit as well. So the two key games as far as the section is concerned, how we do with Marshall and Cloquet.
And what can you expect, out of some of your athletes coming into these games? I know sometimes it could be a little bit of an emotional roller coaster, with the loss to Rogers and coming up and down and going over the course of this season. But big victories in the section. What can we expect, and how have your athletes really transitioned and stepped up in your games?
Oh, it's been a great group of kids, and I expect today. They weren't pleased with their performance yesterday. They weren't pleased with the outcome. They're going to come out very intense today and play their best. Win or lose, I think you'll see a good effort from the Grand Rapids team. We're a very young team. We lost 8 or 9 seniors last year. I think we only have 3 starters on the field this year. So those younger players are kind of learning as they go, and we're learning to play together as we go. So I'm looking forward to this continual progression as we get into these section games these next 2 weeks of all those young players really starting to step it up. And if we can do that, we're going to be a very good team.
And we talked about that section schedule, but first we have to remember that St. Michael Albertville today at 1 o'clock. If you're out there and you want to go check out some great soccer action, please go up to Noble Hall Field at 1 o'clock as the Grand Rapids Thunderhawks boys soccer team takes on St. Michael Albertville. And Coach Jeff Lightfoot I wish you good luck in that game today. Is there anything else to add?
Well, just encourage people to come out. If you haven't had a chance to watch high school soccer before, it's going to be a great afternoon to sit and watch a soccer game. The concession stand will be open. There'll be a lot of good soccer played today, so I encourage you to come and give it a try. And watch.
A very nice afternoon. Forget about the leaves today. Forget
right,
about the lawn. Get out there and watch some soccer. Once again, Grand Rapids Thunderhawks taking on St. Michael Albertville today at Noble Hall Field up at the high school. 1 o'clock is the start on that game. You're listening to the Sports Issue here on 1320 KOZY and KOZYRadio.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Issue. I'm Jason.
And I'm Toivo.
Once again, to thank our guests today. We appreciate them for coming in to help promote the sports, and also local sports head coach of the boys soccer team, Jeff Lightfoot. Before that, in the first hour, Grand Rapids head volleyball coach Brian Fidelai, as well as Anna York and Becca Morris of the Thunderhawk volleyball team. Big game today for the Thunderhawk boys soccer team, 1 o'clock against St. Michael Albertville at the beautiful Noble Hall Field today.
Yeah, if you have a chance to get out and see some sports today, I suggest you do it. The lawn work can wait for a couple more days. It's going to be a beautiful day out there, so get out and watch some soccer action.
And then also, if you're a volleyball fan, Greenway's got a tournament going on that starts in about 15 minutes at the Karen Tomlin Gymnasium. Should be an exciting day there. Again, we've touched on it all day throughout the broadcast. 7 o'clock Monday night, Grand Rapids Greenway. They'll square off at the Karen Tomberlin Gymnasium. And now, just a quick reminder, programming note, got to get that fun stuff in. Coming up after the Sports Issue, we're going to have Inside Twins, where they talk Twins baseball. And I could say it's the Twins, I guess. It might be the Rochester Red Wings and the New Brighton Rockcats with the players that they have up right now as they take on the Tampa Bay Rays today and then tomorrow. Should be an exciting one. Some good pitching matchups. I'm looking forward tomorrow afternoon. David Price on the hill for Tampa Bay will be making the trek down to watch some Twins baseball.
And that's why we are so looking forward to it. Myself and Jason will be sitting about 14 rows up behind home plate along with 2 of my girls. So they're going to have a nice, fun little experience. And I tried to explain to them that, girls, it's, at first I said, hey, we're going to go down to the cities and watch the Minnesota Twins. And they says, can we go to Chutes and Ladders? Which is a big playground down there. So they're worried more about that. But I tried to ramp it up and say, we're going to be there with 30,000 people. And I showed them pictures. And so now I think that they...
I got to cut you off. 30,000 people?
Well, maybe.
I'm
trying to ramp it up here. But
I understand. I get that.
It's going to be a beautiful Sunday afternoon. There might be 30,000 people there just because it is a nice afternoon. So, I went and kind of looked at where tickets were and what were left available. And, there wasn't really anything lower that was good that were available, so we'll be surrounded, hopefully, but it should be a good matchup. Twins trying to play spoilers to your division rivals in the Tampa Bay Rays.
Really hope they do. As I said, this is one of the few times I'll be going to Target Field pulling for a Twins victory. The Yankees sitting, I think, it's 2 games behind the Rays right now for that second wild card in the American League. It's going to be exciting down the stretch. But the Twins this week, they've had a chance to play spoiler with Oakland. Oakland took care of them, taking 2 of 3. Last night, the Rays took the first game of the 3-game set. They play again today. And that game today starts about 5 o'clock, or 5:40 is a pregame show. First pitch, 6:10. We'll have that following Golden Gopher football. But when you look at the Twins and the Rays have that pitching, and they're facing 1, 2, and 3 in the rotation of Tampa Bay.
I'm not optimistic. It's just going to be a nice afternoon of baseball. Is all it's going to be. It'll be beautiful weather. I'm excited to actually see a game for the first time at Target Field as opposed to actually play on Target Field. Because if most of you know that have my that are friends with me on Facebook, my profile picture is of me laying on Target Field, and I tell you what, the grass there is. It's grass I've never walked on before. Let's just put it that way.
Well, it's a majestic place, and it's a great place to watch a baseball game, which unfortunately, if you're a diehard Twins fan right now, you want to send that message to the poll ads that we're not happy with how things are going, that place being full every day has just got to hurt because you don't send that message by filling their wallets.
Well, the fact of the matter is it goes down to simple business. When your overhead costs for your players are being offset by the 30,000 people that were showing up in August, it's kind of hard to go, well, let's open it up a little bit more and grab a player here and a player there. Their margins on their the money that they're yielding is much greater than what and much more important maybe than the product that they're putting on the field. But I have to believe this is Gardenhire's last year.
I think it might be, but I think he might also get one of those kind of, we're going to give you another chance just because of the fact that the cupboard was bare for you this year. But you look next year and perhaps 2 years, Miguel Sano, Brian Buxton, the top 2 prospects by Baseball America, I believe. How do you, in a situation like this, I'm not a big Gardenhire fan. I'm starting to see the pro Gardenhire comments now about the guy that maybe he deserves that chance with those guys because of what he did in 2001 and 2002 and 2003 with those youngsters and bringing them along. It's going to be interesting. There's a lot of talks. Jason and I talked about it on the way back last night about Buxton and Sano. You hear about those guys being number 1 and 2, and they're still playing in single A and double A. I kind of agree with what the Twins are doing, keeping them down there right now. However, you saw Bryce Harper when he was 18, 19, straight to the majors. A couple of the other guys, Yasiel Puig, he played a lot of pro baseball in Cuba and all that too. But these guys are making an impact. What really are the Twins waiting for? And a lot of that has to do with the financial aspect. Buxton's a young guy, so is Sano. But at what point do you say, you know what, the future's now? The Twins kind of tried to do that with Aaron Hicks this year. It didn't really work out. That's one of my big beefs I have about Ron Gardenhire. He threw a guy that played in only double A and said, hey, you know what, we're going to lead you off. You're a rookie. We're going to put you in that spot. He should have hit him in the lineup, I thought, 8 or 9. Brian Dozier's working out as a nice leadoff guy. You got to put Hicks down in the bottom of the order, let him get acclimated a little bit. In spring training, Hicks wasn't going against the 1s and 2s that you see every day that you do when you're going to the mound in the regular season. So he was hitting 350 in spring training, not always against the 1s and 2s.
Yeah, that's where I think it may be Gardenhire's last year, but maybe he gets that chance again. Maybe he has that opportunity to step in once again. They've got to put some pitching around him. They got to put some pitching around those guys. But if they can do that, the future of the Twins does look bright. I am optimistic about next year and the year after if they get some pitching in place in the winter meetings or in the off season. But they've really got to reach out there. They've got to reach out there and pick up 1, maybe 2 really solid starters and round out the bullpen. And the Twins, they've just got to open up their pocketbooks.
Well, that's the thing. And next year is going to be a money-making year for the team. They have the All-Star Game, the Home Run Derby, all the things that go on in that whole weekend event. It's going to be another money-making year. This year's a money-making year for the Twins. When you're not playing well and cutting payroll like they have all year long, and you're still filling that place up, which it's a great place to watch a baseball game. Fans, if you haven't been there, I recommend going there. It is an awesome place, and there's not a bad spot in that stadium. But it's one of those things, it's take a penny, leave a penny type thing. Do you want the Twins to improve or in the Pohlads keep spending money and not spend money, or do you want them? It's just one of those unique situations.
Like I said, I'll say it. I said it once, I said it again, and the Twins have got to put some pitching around these guys.
Well, we thank you for tuning in to the Sports Issue on 1320 KOZY.